All right, another episode of the Radpherd. We're back on the chassis again. Not as much to show. In fact, I'm actually showing you a little over a week's worth of effort. And the reason is when you move from one component to another, there's time for design and preparing to do the work. So I originally was going to attach the center section, the third member, to the chassis, but I realized that the mechanism for the mounting of the shocks to the swing arms was actually going to be more important, so I needed to do that first because the braces for the third member had more flexibility in where they could go. So then I started designing or trying to figure out what kind of arms to make for the mechanism. And just to show you, I came up with this design because it's not just for function, it's for looks. Now it's not painted, so it has a strange look to it with the shininess in the background. You can see the splined hub that's used for it. The connecting rod will go in between the two arms, or the shock mounting point will go between there. But then, for the fun of it more than anything else, I tried to figure out how I could make increments of change of angle. It could come in handy, but it's not as important as what I made it. It took quite some time to calculate how I could take these components, and by offsetting them to the spline, I could pull them off, turn them, and then change the relationship between the two. So, seeing as if I get this right, and of course they don't always go on easy. Yeah, that's not what I want. That's not what I want. I should have. You can see I don't plan very far ahead for these videos. So, there we go. Now, this pair, it's not as obvious, but there's a 3-degree difference between the one and the other. And when I welded this one up, I had it 3 degrees off the center of the spline. And then this one, I had 6 degrees off the center of the spline. And with this arrangement, and there's 15 splines on this, with this arrangement, I can go in 6-degree increments. If I take this one off, turn it over, and then put it on here, now I'm 15 degrees off between the 2 points. Now with this one being at 3 degrees, if I take this one off, turn it over, well, I was wondering if that was going to happen. And what this is, excuse me for a second, this is actually the fixture I use to set these up. And since I'm talking about that, I slide the hub down into this pocket, and then I lay the arm on top of it or through it, and then there's these marks. So this was not a high precision fixture. This line here is center of the spline. This line here is 3 degrees off. This line here is 6 degrees. So the first arm I welded up at 3 degrees, and then the second arm at 6 degrees, and that gave me my increments of 6 degrees per. So I start out with the two sitting like this, and I have 3 degrees apart. Then if I flip this one over, it would move to this side, and now I have 9 degrees apart. And then flipping this one and this one, I then have 15 degrees apart. So that's how the system works. And I see if I can get it. And of course I have it wrong. Well, let's try again. All right, well, for some reason these splines really argue with me as far as where they should go. So actually I did have it right. Flip it back over, set it down like that. Then this one, well, as you can see, I can, and there we have, I'm pretty sure that should be 9 degrees apart. But of course I can just take it, and then if I move like this, so you can see how I have the adjustment for it. So now what does this actually do? Let's go over to the chassis. And of course I don't have enough hands for all this. And somehow oh, that's why it wasn't holding up. All right, I'm gonna put this together. Hopefully, let's see. Actually, I know you're not seeing anything, but this is a person who doesn't do videos and doesn't have any kind of a production arrangement. So here at the chassis, and something I didn't show with the last video on the chassis is any kind of motion in this system. So if you see this, and I can lift it, I have the bumper on there right now. We'll take that off. And so that's how the trailing arm works. And right now I have it held up just by this jack, but it actually will be lower when it's in its actual position. Now, over on the far side, I mocked up the, I'm going to change this, there we go. I mocked up the arms and the shock. So this, it represents the coil over shock. This represents one of the control arms for the rocker shaft. There's the spline shaft, and there's the other rocker arm, and then there'll be an arm, then there'll be a rod that goes from there down to the trailing arm. Now let's move over there to get a better look. So the shock, let me go get that other shock the actual coil over. This is not the one I'm going to use, but this represents an unreasonable facsimile. Yeah, that's a joke I heard on Bugs Bunny. Just like genuine imitation. So the shock is literally going to go through this piece of 6-inch pipe. I don't know why it didn't move this out of the way. So this is actually going to go through the pipe at an angle, and it's going to attach to the arm down there. And on the back of the pipe will be the attachment point for the shock itself. So if I got these set up right, and I don't, see if I can get this right. What I'm doing here is trying to get these in a position, and there we go. So this is what we're looking at here. So these are the two arms going through the frame rails, and they will work like this. So this outer one will be pushing down on an arm on a rod that attaches to the trailing arm. So as the trailing arm, let's see if we can get, oh, I know how to do this. So the trailing arm will go up, and this arm then will go up. So they will be working in conjunction with each other. There'll be a mounting point here somewhere to connect the rod to the two pieces. Well, I know this wasn't one of my better videos, not that any of them were that great, but that shows you where I'm at as far as the chassis. Next video we'll be back to the body, and hopefully I'll have something to show there. Thanks a lot.